human beings, we start to hold on to these images. It's like they've been implanted in our mind, and we start to hold on to them, and we start to think that this is it. This is the only way I can find true happiness, is if I have my Prince Charming coming to my life, sweep me away, and we go off and live happily ever after. But how many people know, when does that really happen? Has that happened for you all? I mean, I'm not saying that it does not happen. What I'm trying to say is that your story is different from Cinderella's story. My story is different from Cinderella's. Prince Charming's story may be different from Daryl's story. Everybody has a different story and a different plan. God has his own plan. God has his own happy ending for us. And so many times we fall victim of disappointment simply because we're holding on to a dream and a plan that's not even ours to begin with. It's not even ours. That's not what God had for you. That is never what God had for you. But you have fallen victim of what has been implanted into you by what you see on TV, some of the things that you've read about, and that's cool, and those things should be inspiring. Now in my older age, I don't look to Cinderella and think, where's my Prince Charming? I look to Cinderella and say, you know what? That girl had a horrible childhood, but here at the end, she ended up being very much happy. And so I look at my own circumstance and I could say, you know what? I've gone through my trials and tribulations. I've kissed a couple of frogs, but eventually I'm gonna find my Prince Charming. You know, sometimes you just have to realize that the plan that God has for you is just a little different than what was expected. And also you have to be able to readjust and be at peace when God is moving in your life. So many times we create a bigger situation because we want to go fighting and screaming when God is trying to move us into a certain direction. But sometimes you really have to not key into one aspect of your life, but look at the totality to really see what God is doing. I mean, honestly, I sat there one night and I was just like, am I really moving home? Like, am I really gonna do this? You know, it's just something, like I said, it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's just something different and something I have to become adjust to. I mean, moving back in with my parents, and let me tell you about my parents. My parents, okay, so I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I go to work by 7:30. My parents are a little opposite. My parents are, what are they called? Late, people that stay up late. I can't think of it, but they stay up really late. My parents don't go to sleep till like 12:30. They wake up early in the morning, you know, they have to be to work by 7:30, but they stay up by 12:30. They just, totally different lifestyle. And so I know there's gonna be adjustments that I need to make on my end for me to move back home. But at the same time, I have to be at peace with that because I know that God has a different plan, that God is aligning my footsteps. In Proverbs chapter 16, it says, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. And so I looked at that and I said, the heart of man plans his way. And you think about heart and you think about love and how the heart is so good, but the truth is sometimes our heart has alternate motives. And when you think about plans are usually derived and motivated by something else. When you look up the word plan in the dictionary, you often see the word scheme, which I was just like, that's true. And so a lot of the plans that we have in our own lives, it's because it's something in the background that we're really just trying to establish, something that we're really just trying to obtain real quick. And sometimes there's some negative motivation behind our plans, and sometimes that's our main motivation to execute it because you want maybe a worldly possession so bad that you are willing to be on the front line and you just go hard, go forward to make a way. Sometimes even when God puts up barriers to stop us from executing our plans, we continue because we want this thing so much, and so we try to force things to make them happen. But it says here, but that the Lord establishes his steps, your steps, my steps, our steps. And so when you look up the word establish, it's a little bit more concrete, to say the least. You see, when you think of something being established, You think about a house. It's on firm. It's on a stable basis. It's settled in a position that is not easily moved. You see, some of the plans that we try to execute, even when God has put up barriers, that's how you know. That's how you know. After so many barriers, I mean, I understand there's going to be obstacles, but after so many barriers, you really need to reevaluate your plan. You need to reevaluate your plan and check to see if your plan is really established by God, or is it just a plan that you made up because it sounded good, or maybe someone else had the same plan and you wanted that plan too, so you had that plan. When God establishes something, it cannot be moved. You see, what God has for you, it will be yours. Despite the obstacles, you don't have to be malicious. You don't have to scheme. God is here and he is ordering your steps. And here we are so many times trying to get out of order. But you have to have discernment and pay attention to when God is trying to bring you in order. And so another verse that comes to my mind is Isaiah 25, verse 1. These are very just short scriptures. It says, "O Lord, you are my God. I will exalt you. I will praise your name, for you have done wonderful things. Plans formed of old, faithful, and sure." And when I read that, I was like, plans of old, faithful, and sure? I wasn't sure why that stood out to me so much. But then I started thinking about it, because I was thinking, plans formed of old, that made no sense to me. I was like, what is God talking about here? But when I started thinking about it, I thought about the word old in a different sense. You see, sometimes we think about old as something like past, like, oh, that's an old trend. No one does that anymore. That's old. That's old school. And we think of it as in the past, as it's done, it's finished. We're beyond that now. I believe that in this sense, God is saying that he has plans formed of old. I believe God is talking about advances in life, not the past, but God is talking about your future. You see, the latter part of your life. For instance, when you talk about an old man, you say old meaning that he's at the latter part of his life. You're talking about how he's overcame so many things, and here he is at a high point or beyond half of his life, and that's someone that you consider an older man at the latter part of his life. And so when I read this and I thought about the plans form of old, I was like, oh, okay, God is talking about the plans I have for you in the future. He says plans of old, faithful, and sure. Faithful, good old faithful. God is good old faithful, that we can always rely, trust on him. He always brings these situations into our lives in which we are forced to rely and trust on him, even when you don't want to, and sometimes you have to go blindly into the things that God is telling you to do, but you know you have to execute it if God has put it on your heart. And surely he says that he will plans formed of sureness, free from doubt. You see, when God first presents something to you, sometimes we look at it and we may question it, but oftentimes it's not for us to question. It's for us to move. I think about, like, my mom would tell me to go do something, and I would ask her why. And oh my gosh, that grind my mom's gears. If I asked her why, it was about to be like World War III in her house, because she would say, it does not matter why, I told you to go do it. And there's so many times in which God tells us to go do something, and we're like, why? That don't even make sense. Why, God? I mean, like, really? I do that now? You know, we act like that. But we need to have that be that obedient Christian, and despite whatever God is saying, instead of questioning him and asking why, where, 101 questions, we should just say, okay, and go get her done. And so another verse is that it says, therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow. Oh, actually there's a verse before that. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33 and 34. It says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Okay, we talked about delay a couple of shows ago, and this is the very essence of that. I want to tell somebody here that it says, first seek his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. And so if there's a time in which you made a plan and your plan just did not, was not fulfilled as expected, I want to say to you to seek first the kingdom. God is saying right here that if you seek his kingdom, you seek his righteousness, all these things will be given to you. All the things that you desire, all the plans that you've made, if they are in alignment with God's perfected will for your life, and if you are seeking his kingdom, I'm sure you will start to get insight into what that perfected will is for your life. God will make it all happen. God will make it all very feasible. God will show you favor. Doors will be open supernaturally. People will do things for you out of the goodness of their heart, and they won't even know why. And it's because God's favor is upon you, and he is giving you the very things that you have desired because you have sought his kingdom. And it says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. How many times we don't have a bad plan? Your plan A did not go through, and you're like, now what? And so you start this whole train of worry. This whole new scenario is created because you take on worry as your burden. You worry about these things like, oh, if that didn't happen, like, what am I going to do? I'm going to tell you now, there's far and few situations in life that are really, really worth your worrying. Because by the time you look back, you're always taken care of. God always comes through in the clutch. He takes care of you, and all your worrying ended up being for nothing. Nothing more than a headache. Nothing more than you just wasting time worrying. And so I just want to tell somebody to have confidence. Have confidence in God. He did not say that all things are going to be good, but he did say that they will work out for your good. And so you have to understand and pray for discernment when things start to happen in your life. Know, like, man, is God trying to get my attention? You know, what is he really doing right now? Sometimes we just freak out when things happen in our lives. Instead of responding to the situation, we react. It's a normal reaction just to spaz out and just, oh my God, what just happened? You know, that's a reaction. But to respond when horrible things are happening, or to say, all right, God, this just happened. This can't happen again. So let me take a moment, let me pray about it. Let me seek your kingdom. Let me seek you on this and get a better understanding of what God is trying to convey to you and what is God wanting you to do. Because it is the truth, every day is not peaches and cream. I think sometimes as Christians we have that fallacy that every day will be peaches and cream, and no, life is hard. That's a reality. Life is hard. Every day is not peaches, but God is saying ultimately things will work out. It's a promise that is as good as God who made it. That the things that are working together will come together in due time. And you have to understand that when God allows a time of sorrow, suffering, or pain into our lives, it's always for our good and for his glory. So many times God allows these things as protection. I've noticed that definitely in my older age, when something does not happen as I planned. Oh, so one scenario, this is classic. When I was in college, I wanted to be a financial planner. I wanted to manage people's portfolios, and that if someone asked me in college, what do you want to do in the next 5 to 10 years? That's what I wanted to do. I did not want to be an entrepreneur because it just seemed like too much work and it just was not of interest to me. I just wanted to climb the corporate ladder and be this big time financial planner. So that didn't quite work out. That's not the job I got coming out of college. That's not what God blessed me with. And there were times in which I was just like, man, I can't believe I wasted all that time getting that finance degree and I'm not even using it. You know, this was not my plan. This was not according to the plan that I had for myself. But then, about 2007, there was a big financial crash. And every big financial company, from Smith Barney to Goldman Sachs, was on